How do you see in a world with zero light? We're going to dive into the tech that literally unlocked the deep ocean and totally changed warfare using just sound. This is the story of sonar.
Okay, so picture this. You're in the deep, deep ocean. It is pitch black. I mean, absolutely no light. The pressure is crushing. So how on earth do you get around? How do you find, well, anything? It turns out answering that very question led to one of the most game-changing inventions of the 20th century.
And the answer? It's sonar. That's short for sound navigation and ranging. It's basically a technique that gives us this incredible kind of underwater vision, letting us use sound to see where our eyes are completely useless.
So there are really two main ways to go about this. First, you've got active sonar. This one's easy to picture. It's like shouting into a canyon and then waiting for the echo to bounce back. You send out a pulse of sound, that classic ping you hear in movies, and then you time how long it takes for that sound to return. Then there's passive sonar, which is the complete opposite. It's all about being super quiet, like cupping your ear to the water and just listening for noises that other things are making. You know, like the hum of a submarine's engine.
So where did this wild idea even come from? Well, like a lot of groundbreaking tech, it was born from disaster and war.
The core idea is actually way older than you'd think. Leonardo da Vinci was kicking it around way back in 1490. He literally described putting a tube in the water to listen for distant ships. But the real spark, the thing that lit the fire under everyone, that was the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. That catastrophe created this massive, urgent need for a way to spot icebergs. Get this, within a month of the sinking, the first patent for an echo-ranging device was filed. And then, boom, just a couple years later, World War I kicks off. Suddenly, the terrifying threat of German U-boats made this research an absolute top priority.
And that military need, it kicked off this huge, decades-long underwater arms race. That's what really forged sonar into the powerful tool we know today, pushing it to incredible new heights, all through World War II and the Cold War.
So what you're seeing here is one of the very first practical active sonar systems. It's a British unit, and they called it ASDIC. Fun fact, they named it that to keep it a secret. It stood for their anti-submarine division. Now, this tech was a total game changer for sure, but the first versions, they had a really big and often fatal flaw.
Okay, so here was the problem. A ship gets a sonar ping on an enemy sub. Great, but to attack it, the ship had to sail right over the top of the sub to drop depth charges off the back. The trouble was, in those last critical seconds, the ship would completely lose sonar contact. The sub was literally sitting in its blind spot. That meant they were dropping those depth charges completely blind, giving the U-boat a perfect chance to get away.
So, the Allies had to get creative and fast. They came up with new tactics, like the creeping attack, that used two ships. One would keep the sub on sonar, while the other one snuck in for the attack. They also invented brand new weapons, like the Hedgehog, that actually threw projectiles ahead of the ship, so they could hit a target while still tracking it. At the same time, the US was busy developing its own systems. That's actually where the term sonar comes from, and they were using much better materials. This whole technological race peaked during the Cold War with something called SOSUS. This was a top-secret network of underwater microphones laid across entire ocean basins, just to listen for Soviet subs.
And if you want a sense of just how big this whole operation was, just look at these things. These massive machines are called LOFAR gram writers. They sat in secret stations on the coast and would print out these huge visual maps of all the sound in the ocean. And you had analysts just staring at these printouts 24/7, hunting for the one tiny sound that was the unique acoustic signature of an enemy submarine. Absolutely wild.
But, after the wars ended, this incredibly powerful technology started to leak out from the military. It began finding all sorts of new uses in the civilian world and for science.
I mean, one of the most common places you'll find it today? Fishing. Seriously. Commercial fishing boats depend on it. It works because the little air-filled swim bladder inside a fish reflects sound waves differently than the water. So on a display like this, entire schools of fish just light up.
Sonar has also become this amazing tool for explorers and archaeologists. It can paint these unbelievably detailed pictures of the seafloor, uncovering all this hidden history. This image here, that's a Soviet minesweeper that went down back in 1941. It's been perfectly preserved down there in the dark, and now, thanks to sound waves, we can see it.
And it's this exact same idea that helps us understand our own planet better. Sonar is what we use for bathymetric mapping, which is really just a fancy way of saying we're making topographical maps of the ocean floor. Using systems just like this, ships can map out all the hidden mountains, the deep canyons, and the vast plains that cover, over 70% of our planet's surface.
But There's a flip side to all this. Filling the ocean with all of our sound, well, it's come at a price. This incredible ability to see with sound has had some really serious and pretty unexpected consequences for the animals that actually call the ocean home.
Think about it. Marine mammals like whales and dolphins, they live in a world that is made of sound. It's everything to them. They use their own built-in sonar, echolocation, to find their way around, to hunt for food, to talk to each other. So when we come in with all our artificial noise, it can just completely drown out their entire world.
And just how loud are we talking about here? Well, some of the really high-powered military sonars can blast out sound pulses up to 270 decibels. To put that in perspective for you, that is way, way louder than a rocket launch if you were standing just a few feet away. And remember, sound travels much, much better underwater, so the impact is just huge.
And look, this isn't just some theory. There's real research that's proven a direct link between sonar and harm to marine life. For instance, studies on blue whales showed that mid-frequency sonar flat out disrupts the whale's feeding behavior.
The known effects are really serious and pretty widespread. The noise messes with their feeding and their ability to communicate. It can actually chase animals away from places they need to be, like breeding grounds. And it's been strongly linked to mass strandings, especially for deep-diving species like beaked whales. What's really telling is that in some of these cases, the stranded animals have symptoms that look a lot like decompression sickness, the bends, which suggests they might be rocketing to the surface way too fast just to escape the sound.
So it's pretty incredible when you think about it. We went from a simple tube in the water to a tool that maps the entire seafloor and protects nations. Sonar has basically given us a superpower. We figured out how to see in total darkness. But as we keep pumping more and more of our own noise into the oceans, it leaves us with one last big question. We learned how to see with sound, but have we learned when it's time to just be quiet?